Hello, 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 and welcome to the first edition of HughesRound of the new year. Happy New Year, everybody. I hope you're all healthy and well and not suffering too badly from this abominable government that is still in charge and will be in charge for a very, very long time unless we do something about it. So that's why we meet up, I guess, every day to discuss what's been going on. Movers and shakers in the world of incompetent idiocy in government. And today we have learned, over the last day or so, we've learned a bunch of stuff. Let's leave Brexit to one side for a moment. Let's just talk about the pandemic. So with the particular vaccine that we've already had administered to thousands of elderly people and vulnerable people, it takes 2 doses and there's 21 days between each dose. This is fairly standard for vaccines. If anyone's been traveling and got their hepatitis B or whatever vaccine, there's usually more than one injection, sometimes over the course of a few weeks or even a few months. It's different for each vaccine. The government, in their infinite wisdom, has decided that the second dose of the vaccine, that for people who've already had the first one, won't be administered for 12 weeks. By which time it'll be useless. So, that's a great way to kick off the new year. More government incompetence on a grand scale. I've got some great messages already. Diane saying Happy New Year to you and your loved ones. Thank you very much, Diane. We've got Malcolm asking when will it start? Now, started. Sorry, I was messing around with the chat function. You'll be happy to know, though, that my battery actually arrived to my laptop. So now, thanks to my Patreon donors, I have a new battery for my laptop, so it running out of battery because I forgot to plug it in should not be a problem going forward. Now, there's a few other problems in this room that I need to sort out before we get it, everything perfect, but we're getting there. We are getting there, and it's thanks to you. It's thanks to your support, which is wonderful. Please, if you can give me a like as well, and if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to my channel because the more subscribers you get, the more money you get off YouTube. It's not very much, but it's enough to help buy a new battery for your laptop, etc. Without which I can't do the show. So, patience. All right, Diane. She said, patience, Malcolm. Hello from Norfolk, everyone. That's from Thomas Page. Kevin says hello. Tiger Pie says, happy Hogmanay to one and all. Maybe from Scotland up there. Davian says, hello, Huguenots. The happy 1984 people from Plum Duff. Yes. Yeah, but 1984 wasn't quite this ridiculous. It's more like How I Stopped Worrying, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Stopped Worrying and Learned to Love the Bomb. It's more like that. And don't forget, in that movie, if you haven't seen it, World War III, or the annihilation of the world, actually, is caused by some loony person in a position of power who's a lunatic and a conspiracy theorist. And he thinks that the government putting fluoride in the water is going to somehow control our brains or something. Sound familiar? Yeah, well, it should. So if you get a moment, Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove with, what's his name? The guy from The Goons in it. No, not Spike Milligan. What's his name? It's just falling out my head. He was in Being There. He's in loads of stuff. He played Clouseau in Pink Panther. Peter Sellers. Whew. I was having a senior moment then. I'm going to have another sip of tea, or brain fluid, as I like to call it. Happy New Year, mate, from Snowy Adams. Hi, Claire. You've interrupted me trolling racists on LBC posts. I'm very sorry. I apologise for the interruption. You may go back to trolling racists after this brief broadcast of 1 hour. Welcome to 1921. New era is dawning, or some crap like that. Yeah, we've got the Versailles Treaty done and dusted, haven't we? Well, it hasn't been ratified by the US Senate, but, I'm sure it'll be fine. Hi, Choxal, or lol. Supported the Scots last night by buying some whiskey to kick off New Year. Good on you, Diane. Whiskey's great. Whiskey's one of my favourite drinks. It is fantastic. It's like drinking the essence of a tree. It's just got that woody texture to it. Oh, just great stuff. Tequila on the other hand. Oh my God, it's horrible. I still drink it if we're having a drinking competition or something because I'm not rude. But do you know what I mean? Oh my, no, don't get me started. I lived in Panama, so it was either like rum or tequila, and I'd always go for rum. Always rum. And if you can get some Captain Morgan Spice rum, winner. Anyway, I'm going off on one. Let's get back to the messages. Hello, everyone, says Sugar Free. Happy New Year, everyone. Boris is using school children as a biological weapon to kill off the elderly and infirm. Yes, Attila, he is. And this is remarkable. People say, well, why would they kill off their own voters? Well, you know, they've got 13 million voters, the Tory party, and they won't miss 100,000 of them. And old people cost a lot of money, you see, because once you get old, it's not about the pensions, because we give really miserly state pensions. I think the most miserly state pensions of all the countries of the EU. Well, when we're in the EU. I think we give a more miserly pension than like Romania and Bulgaria at the moment. It's really, really bad. And it's not that. It's the healthcare. Because people aren't dying young. People are not dying of appendicitis. They're not dying from childbirth as much. You know, the things that would have killed people off 50 years ago, they're not killing people off. So everybody pretty much is dying of cancer or dementia. Because that's the only things they can't really cure yet. And both of those treatments are very, well, you know, treating cancer is obviously really expensive. Treating dementia is expensive, not because of the medicine involved, but because of the care and attention that someone with dementia requires. You're basically dealing with a fully formed adult, elderly, frail baby, and their heads, they're not all there. It's very, very difficult and very upsetting for people who have to deal with it. And if you are dealing with someone who is, who is that way, or you're living with cancer, or you know someone who is at the moment, you know, my heart goes out to you. It's a shitty situation, and I just hope that medical science one day susses it out and figures out what the problem is, and it goes some way to solve it. And I hope that doesn't involve apes taking over the world. Replying to Snowy Hands, yes, LBC feed full of trolls. Yeah, but we need to troll. This is one of the things that the Rejoin campaign need to do. We need to set up our own troll farms and go on the LBC site and just flood it with comments. Flood the Daily Mail site, the Express site, the Telegraph site. Just flood it with comments. Basically doing the opposite of, well, saying the opposite of what the racist trolls say. Because it's that exposure, isn't it? How do people get out their bubble? Well, they go on the LBC message board. Oh, I'll get out my bubble. Let's have a look. And then it's all stuff about, being racist is great. Ha ha ha. Aren't racists wonderful? And then, you get into these debates. Don't bother getting into debates. Just have a troll farm. That is a good troll farm. Like, you know, you have hackers, don't you? You have like white hat hackers and black hat hackers. It's easy for you to say. And one of them hacks into things to make money, and the other one hacks into things to show that the security is lapse on your product. Is lacking. I don't know. Something like that. Anyway, can't say Happy New Year. Well, I mean, we're wishing people to have a happier New Year than last year. Pizza sellers. Yes, sorry, I got there. I got there in the end. Jacob Rees-Mogg, Somerset Capital moved to Dublin. How can he get away with this? Because he's posh. I got a really good Twitter message today, private message from someone in Germany who was talking about the denazification of Germany after the Second World War. It was very interesting. And what they suggested, which I think is a fabulous idea, is a de-lordification of the United Kingdom. So the idea is that it's not just getting rid of all these peers. I don't mean killing them, but, you know, taking their peerage off them, taking their power away from them, taking their influence away from them. But also, you've got to reprogram an entire population so they understand that just because somebody is born rich and has a plummy accent doesn't mean that you should find them sexually arousing, which is what happens to most Brexiteers. It's plummy accents, fish, and Spitfires. That's their porn mags. That's their porn sites that they go on to. There's like You Spitfire, which they all go on, and there's pictures on there of Conservative MPs hugging massive fish, and they're like, "Oh, I love that. Oh, look at the size of the gills on that one," rubbing their legs in a really disturbing kind of way. I suppose that's what they do. I don't know personally. I've never seen it, but you know, you've got to imagine, because there must be something. There must be something that gets into people's heads, and they go, "Oh, yeah, rich people. they're great. And you're like, okay, why? Because they're rich. Yeah, you got to give me some more on this. So if they're rich, they must have worked really hard and been really clever to get that much money. Well, the fact is that research funding for scientists isn't that great unless, the research is researching where to buy PPE from China and failing to do so. That's not really scientific research, though. So that side of it's lucrative, but the general academic research is not that lucrative. That's why you never watch MTV Cribs and see the lifestyles of the rich and famous, and it's all about climate scientists and their gold-plated swimming pools. It just doesn't happen because they don't get paid that much. So they're not smart. And maybe they're good at business. Maybe they're really great business people. And you find time and time again that the business people who actually have their head screwed on are people who have started their own business and, yes, started from nothing, but they're few and far between. Let's not forget the three biggest sort of entrepreneur people in the UK that people look to and say, when you say entrepreneur, right? Maybe Alan Sugar. So I'll put him to one side. So he's the one that's kind of normal because he had a fairly normal upbringing. But Richard Branson, and I don't mind Richard Branson so much. He can be a bit of a dick sometimes, but Richard Branson, Tim Martin of Wetherspoons, right? The guy famously who was so obsessed with leaving the euro, even though we were never part of it. It was insane. The battle to keep the pound. I don't even think there was a parliamentary debate on whether we were going to keep the pound or not. We just did. And the third one is James Dyson. All three of those self-made billionaires, all went to private school. So they were all born into wealth. So they had some money, they made some more money. And then you have people like Donald Trump, who was born into massive wealth and squandered it all on shite. I don't know, he was made bankrupt about, 6 times? Great businessman. I think someone worked out that if he'd just taken the money his dad gave him, the millions, hundreds of millions of dollars his dad gave him, and just put it in a trust fund, he would have made more money. He's a bit useless. Anyway, so the point being that we've got to get away from this idea that because people are posh or because they're rich, they're better people than the rest of us. We've got to stop it. We've got to stop it in the same way that Gandhi tried to stop people in the untouchable class in India being called untouchables, which is disgraceful. These are the people who had the crappiest jobs. And because of the caste system there was no social migration or up or down in the caste system. If you were born to do a particular job because your parents did, you would do that job every day till the day you died. And there was no social mobility as a result of that. And so when I heard, what are we up to now? 16 minutes in? When I heard Jeremy Corbyn talking about, we're not going to focus on social mobility anymore, I was just, what? When someone who went to a private prep school says we don't want to focus on social mobility anymore, you're just like, oh my God. Someone who dropped out of North London Polytechnic, right, on a course that was paid for by a trade union, and still managed to be leader of the Labour Party and have one of the most influential positions in British politics in the last few years, even though he wasn't in power. Could have been. Don't forget, just 13 months ago, the Tories were a minority government. There were more opposition people than the Tories. They had Boris Johnson in a box, and because of the Fixed Term Parliament Act, they couldn't call an election unless the opposition supported it. And the Lib Dems and Labour went, let's have an election. We're going to do really well out of this. Because they saw the polls, they just didn't believe them. Always believe the polls. Except when it says that the Democrats are going to win. And then there's probably going to be about 7 points out. Happy New Year! Just seen eBay. Any purchases on eBay from EU now has 20% VAT added now. Well, wouldn't they have already had that VAT added? Or is that new? I thought it was always... Oh, is that on top of the VAT that we pay in this country? Oh, God. Lots of love from Knots for Europe. Nottinghamshire for Europe. Yes. I did a pubcast. Me and Adam did a pubcast in Nottingham, in like the oldest pub. I think we were in the Yoldi trip to Jerusalem, which was fantastic. A fantastic pub. It's one of these really sprawling pubs where it's all on different levels and there's loads of different little rooms. Fantastic. It's like partying in a hobbit hole. Bit early for that kind of thing. Watch Phil's video on Gibraltar's new deal with Spain. New member of Schengen I can't speak this morning. I was up quite late last night because it was New Year. Implications. That's the word I'm trying to say. Implications for Scotland. Yes, I haven't watched Phil's video this morning, but I will. I'll watch it after this, actually. If I got up a bit earlier, I probably would have had time to. Can't handle spirits. You need Ghostbusters. I'm going to just skip to the end because we've got loads of comments here. Sorry if I missed a few here. Trump inherited over 400 million from his equally repulsive father, Fred. Yes. Slumlord. You know Sheriff Fat Man by Carter the Unstoppable Sex Machine? That could very, very well be about Donald Trump's dad, Fred, who was a scumbag and also a draft dodger. Happy New Year. He was one of those who stayed at home during the war and profiteered at the fact that all the other men about his age were going out and fighting for their country and fighting for freedom, and he just stayed at home and made money. Which you damn well know every single member of this Conservative government would do. They would just stay here and make money. They would never put themselves in that kind of danger. They just wouldn't. They're not that type. Whoops, should be listening to Graham. We're playing at the back of the class. What? Isn't John Brady on Game of Thrones Bradley? Isn't John Bradley on Game of Thrones the only young actor who didn't go to private school in that show? Probably, yeah. I was discussing this with my mate Alex, who last year we planned to make a load of videos, instructional videos for acting. He's an acting teacher. He worked at LIPA in Liverpool, the Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts. Now he works up in Scotland, in Edinburgh, teaching acting. He's really, really good. And we were going to make a series of videos for people on YouTube. This is before lockdown. This is before any of that. And we had it all planned out. And then lockdown happened. And obviously he's in Scotland. I'm here in England. And we had different regulations. So it was hard. But then finally in September this year, we managed to get together. And we filmed half of one of the modules, which was good. But it was all about getting into drama school. And the point we were going to make is that nearly all the big name actors from Britain went to private school, like your Benedict Cumberbatches and your Eddie Redmaynes and stuff. They're all posh. They're all dead posh. And it's a bit like, you know the way Britain always wins the yachting competitions in the Olympics or the sailing competitions? Why do British people win that and not people from Uganda? Well, I was probably just an idea, yeah. And don't say, oh well, you know, Uganda's not on the sea. You've got a big lake there. Don't worry about it, Lake Victoria. Yeah, it's just that if you want to be a yachty, a sailor, you need a load of money behind you. So the only people who can afford it are kind of like posh people from wealthy countries like Britain or the States. So it's a bit unfair. I find this about the Winter Olympics as well. I mean, you know, famously that great movie Cool Runnings with John Candy about the Jamaican bobsleigh team, which is brilliant. The Winter Olympics just discriminates against poorer countries around the world. Because how are you supposed to practice if you live in a tropical? And most countries in the world are hot countries. The world's countries are kind of clustered around the tropics. And then as you go further north, obviously Europe is a bit of an outlier because it's lots of countries in one little block of a peninsula of Eurasia. But most countries are hot. Someone asked me that, you know, when I was talking about going around the world, and he said, what did you take in your backpack? And I'm like, oh, this, and this. He said, you know, did you not have any warm weather gear? And I'm like, well, I didn't need to. Like, seriously, most countries are hot. So it was just like, just a couple of t-shirts, that'll do me. Right, I'm just going to skip to the end here. Check out Fergus Lang by Richard Thompson. It's about a property developer. Is that a book? That's from John. The reason Fred Trump didn't fight in World War II is because he didn't know what side to fight for. You may well think that, but I couldn't possibly comment. Actually, yeah, it's true. And in 1927, Fred Trump was arrested whilst attending a KKK rally. The apples certainly did not fall far from the tree. Dad in the KKK, eh? Now he's president. But only for the next 19 days, people. He's going. That's a win. And when you get sad about the whole Brexit situation, just think, at least Trump is going. Little wins. Little wins. That's what we're looking for here. Jacob Rees-Mogg would have been siding with Mosley during the war. He would have led the Nazi sympathisers to Cable Street. Yeah, I have no doubt about that either. It's Oswald Mosley famously came to Liverpool and got stones thrown at him, and I'm rather proud of the fact that my great-grandfather, Alfred, was one of the people throwing stones at him, which I only found out a couple of months ago with my mum. We were watching Peaky Blinders. My mum's really cool, by the way. She watches Peaky Blinders and The Boys and Game of Thrones with me. But yeah, she said, "Oh yeah, your great grandfather threw stones at him," and I'm like, "What?" And then I looked it up on Wikipedia, and it turned out that he did turn up to Liverpool, and he had to go to hospital with a broken collarbone or something because people were throwing stones at him. Now I shouldn't laugh because violence is never the answer, but he was a Nazi, so yeah. I always feel like we should give a little bit of a let when it comes to violence towards Nazis. Violence towards most things is bad. Violence towards Nazis, not necessarily too awful. I was going to just have a quick note here where I was going to say what this horrible... there's a guy called Irritable Bowel Syndrome, IBS, I think his name is, and he is quite vile. I'm just trying to look at my thing. So I retweeted what he said. Well, someone quoted what he said because I won't retweet it. He wrote today, or he said today, "I just wish I was 21 again, frankly, because my goodness, what prospects lie ahead of us for young people now to be out there buccaneering, trading, dominating the world again." If you think that these people live in the real world, you are sadly mistaken. I've been out there. I wouldn't call it buccaneering, but I've been out there and seen the world. And I can tell you now, I can't think of a single product that I could make in this country that I could go to West Africa and successfully sell. Not something that I could do cheaper. That's cheaper than what's already there. Find a niche in the market. Sell at quantities that would allow me to overlook the fact that it costs an absolute fortune to ship stuff to Africa. Good luck trying to get stuff in the port. I knew ships that were sitting out there outside the port of Cotonou in Benin and Lagos in Nigeria, sitting out there on the horizon for days and days, and they were waiting for a local pilot to come and bring them in. There wasn't enough room in the port, the logistics wasn't there, the cranes and operation weren't 100%, and also a lot of the time, because of a lot of corruption and bribery goes on, the pilot will come on board, want some cigarettes and some whiskey, and if you didn't have enough, he'll go, "Okay then, I'll see you tomorrow," and then leave and go do another job. So it's sort of trying to make the only way we could make Brexit work, thinking of it as like we're going to go out and trade with the world, would have to make the rest of the world wealthier than it currently is, which I have no problem with. I mean, let's do that. But that requires investment. It requires billions of pounds worth of investment in these countries to build up their infrastructure, to build up their political systems and social systems, justice systems, in order to eradicate corruption to some extent, enough for commerce to flow freely. There are so many barriers that are kind of there. There's some official barriers, and then there's some unofficial barriers, like the guy who wants more cigarettes to bring the boat in. But yeah, this is a huge problem. And yet these Tory dickheads, they're like, "Oh, I flew planes in Rhodesia." Oh, he didn't fly planes, his dad did. But yeah, IBS is, he was in what's now Zimbabwe or Zambia. I don't know which end of Rhodesia he was in. But he what he's seen of the world is a very, very skewed vision of it. He was in quite a privileged regiment. I think he was in the army. But yeah, he's now a bloody politician, and he's just outrageously stupid and deluded, absolutely deluded. And I hope that tweet comes back to haunt him and people say, "Hang on, you said this, you said it was great for young people," when actually it's really shit for young people. They've had their rights and privileges taken away, they've had their EU citizenship taken away, they've had the Erasmus taken away, they've had all of the opportunities that being a member of the EU afforded them, being able to live and work in 31 other countries, taken away from them. It's all been a negative. It's all been things that have been taken away that you had. for no reason. And this is the important thing. If we gained something, if we gained anything except a feeling of sovereignty, that's the only thing we gained for a select bunch of people. But that's nebulous. That's nothing. That doesn't really mean anything. It's not anything concrete. We've made it more difficult for us to trade, and therefore we've made ourselves the least competitive advanced economy in the world. And even if we had these amazing new trade deals with these other countries, which we don't, a lot of the trade deals that have been done, there's been like 60-odd trade deals that have been done so far, and nearly all of them are just copy and paste, just copy over the deal that we had, and then we made a new deal. Except in the case of places like Japan, bigger economy than ours. It's twice as big as ours. Also twice the population. They have a population of nearly 130 million. We have a population of 66 million. What's it called? The GDP is about £4 trillion, and ours is about 2 trillion. So there's this huge difference there. And they did a deal with us earlier in the year, Liz Truss at the helm. She managed to negotiate a deal that I think some commentators said it was 87% in favour of of Japan. And one of the things that we adhered to were the level playing rules about state aid that the Japanese wanted. And then the Europeans were saying, can we have the same thing? And we were like, no, we're going to have a no deal Brexit, which obviously I'm going to say that, I did say that no deal wouldn't happen. And it didn't happen because they're stupid, right? But they're not that stupid. And I do think they want to ruin the country, but they want to feather their nests while they ruin the country. So it's a bit different. Sorry, I haven't had the messages on the bottom there, so I've missed a few. Graham, there is no helping some people, but it starts at birth. Well, at first I thought Marc Francois was a comedian. Yeah. I thought he was on Danger Mouse. I thought he was the little assistant, the little hamster on Danger Mouse. But no, he's not. Well, maybe he is in a version where an evil Penfold gets created and he's just horrible. And allegedly, maybe he sexually assaults people. I don't know. What's the reaction when they find out about the Joint Partnership Council? Well, there's loads of new committees now for UK-EU trade. I think there's something like 40 new committees that have been set up. So Brexit's not going to go away. The trade deal is going to be renegotiated. I think they're going to stop and have a look at it again in 2024. So it's going to factor into the next election, whether Keir Starmer wants it to or not. Brexit's not going away. And we can't let it. And we can't let the frog boil in the water. We've got to keep pointing out how shit things are compared with how they were. So doing this means getting out of our bubble and getting out there and delivering leaflets or commenting in comment forums to say, hang on, this is crap. And just ask questions. That's a good way of doing it when you're discussing it with someone. Just ask them questions. Don't berate them with facts. I tend to do this. I go, oh, well, you put all the GDP of these countries together and it's less than this country on its own. And I tend to do that. But a really good way of sort of negotiating with people in that kind of like, you're trying to bring them around to your point of view, is let them do the legwork. So you ask them questions. And you find this quite a lot, actually, when someone's put a conspiracy theory or something nuts on Facebook, or they're sounding off on about how great Brexit is on Twitter, and you ask them a question, and you'll know that they know the answer because you say, can you Google it for me? And they'll never Google it because they know in their heart like what the answer is. And it's not good and it doesn't support their argument, but they don't want to have that under their name written. Yeah, this is what it says on Google. It says it's a very bad idea for whatever reason. Diane says, not always able to join you live, but I don't miss any of your broadcasts. I do thank you for being there and giving so many... Oh, thank you. Thanks, Diane. Sounds silly, I know. No, it doesn't sound silly at all. But true that it help people by otherwise think they might be going mad. Yes, this is like a public service, isn't it? I mean, and it's not just me; it's everyone commenting here, everyone taking part, saying, we're all on the same page here. We're all going, this is crazy, and then no one in the media is backing us up, no one in government is backing us up, no one in the opposition is backing us up. So it's like maybe we are going crazy here. Maybe we are going a bit nuts, but no, we're not. We're the sensible ones, Unfortunately, we've got a bit of a Cassandra complex going on that we correctly predict what's going to happen, yet no one will listen to us. So let's just keep our community together and go forward with the goal of communication. It's so key in all this. In the next few years, it's got to be communication, getting the message out, because the powers that be will try everything in their power to stop us from doing that. And we've got to be clever about it. Like, I love the idea of delordification. We really need to start creating new narratives for ourselves, like the man wants Brexit, and the man does want Brexit. So if you want to stick one to the man, you fight against Brexit. Unfortunately, the face of Remain for the referendum was bloody David, privately educated Etonian, Oxford's Cameron. So it was very difficult for us to say, well, it's not the elite that want this. It's want us to remain. And they're like, oh, well, what about him? He's in charge. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's a problem. And one of the things that I will never forgive the guy I mentioned earlier, who I'm not supposed to mention in these things, for is that a week before the referendum result, sorry, not the result. Yeah, well, the result. They had a poll and they found that 50% of Labour voters didn't know whether Labour was for or against staying in the EU. That is a breakdown of communication. That is one hell of a breakdown of communication a week before the referendum. It's almost as though the posh kids all got together and went, this will be a terrific breeze. And don't forget all the people around that man. John McDonnell, his advisor, Seamus Milne, the guy who wrote the 2017 manifesto, Andrew Fisher, Lord Andrew Murray of Gobshiteville or whatever, and Andrew Murray, he's actually a member of the aristocracy, Jenny Formby, who is head of the NEC, and John Landsman, who is head of Momentum, all privately educated. We need a delordification. We need a delordification of this nation. God, that sounds good. Let's maybe I should change the name of this podcast to delordification. But most people aren't lords. Most people aren't rich in that way. And I'm not just talking about the 93% who aren't privately educated. I'm talking about the 99.9% that are not millionaires. And that's something that we've got to push and push and push. Because if we continue with this idea that, the EU is just for white, middle-aged, middle-class people and everyone else, no one else benefits from it, which is so not true, because obviously Objective 1 funding goes to places that the government don't care about and won't give any money to. And we got it from the EU, and it was £2.1 billion for Liverpool, which really got us back on our feet. But then again, that wouldn't have bought a fraction of a government-led track and trace system that doesn't even bloody work. Halftime shout-out. Hit the thumbs up button. I feel like shouting because it's all in capitals. It's a strike against some capitalist corporation somewhere. Yes. Screw you, YouTube. Or Facebook. Or Twitter. Or Twitch. I don't think anyone watches this on Twitch, but it still goes out. It was going out on Mixcloud, but no one was listening to it, and you have to pay for Mixcloud, so I've sacked it off. So it's just in video form now. Hey Graham, I wish I could get Dutch, Finnish, or German citizenship. That's very specific, Simon. That's all got to be more difficult now. People say, if you love the EU so much, why don't you F off and live there? And you're like, I used to be able to. You've taken that right away from me. Thanks. COVID-19 will remain in the UK for another 18 months at this rate. The OAZ vaccine, is that AstraZeneca, is the cheapest, and Oxford AstraZeneca, work that one out, is the cheapest and not-for-profit, kept between 2 and 8 degrees temperature. I think that's -2, maybe. Or maybe it's 2 and 8, I don't know. Just refrigerated. $4 per dose. That's pretty cool. Shouldn't the majority be middle class? Isn't that a good thing? Yeah, Cozy, it is. I mean, I don't want people fearing for their livelihoods every day of their lives. I don't want people thinking, if I get sick, then I'll lose my job. I better not get sick, better not get hit by a car. that fear, that ever-present fear that the government the Conservatives love to instill in people. They want you scared. They leave homeless people on the streets. They could easily put them in homes, give them a home. It would cost less money to give them a house. Maybe not a house, but an apartment, a flat. Why don't they do it? Because they want you to see those homeless people and say, look what will happen to you if you don't work in your job and you go out and you protest about things and you get arrested and then you can't get any more jobs and then you'll be on the street like these people. It's like a warning. It's like a warning to us. That's what they do. They want you to see that. They want you to see people waiting outside the hospital for operations and think, oh God, I better not get ill. They want you to work yourself into an early grave because that's good for them, because they can take your tax money and instead of spending it on infrastructure and housing and education and health, they can spend it all on themselves and their mates. They can steal all that money and half of this dickhead nation will be like, oh yeah, well done. I love it when you steal money off us. Let's get leaflets round to every Tory voter's house, right? And it's got a little old granny on it, right? And it says Tory MP steals 15 grand from grandmother. There you go. Little old grandmother on the front. And you go, well, what happened there? Well, the grandmother paid tax, right? And then this Tory MP stole that money and put it in his pockets and then pissed off to Switzerland. How about that? Or gave it to his mates. Or gave it to his wife, which is great, isn't it? Both Kate Bingham and Dildo Harding, both of them wives of Conservative MPs, entrusted with billions of pounds of British taxpayers' money. And it looked like, hey, maybe Kate Bingham had done a decent job of logistics that she had no idea about and she'd never been involved with in her entire life, but the logistics of getting the vaccine out, and it seemed to start off all right, and there was the lady and she got the injection and everyone was like, yay, and then the second guy was called William Shakespeare and everyone went, he's called William Shakespeare, everything looks all right, yeah. And now it turns out they're going to wait 12 weeks between their jabs, which is going to make the first vaccination pointless, and probably the second one as well. So what happens when you put dickheads in charge of things? Well, not just dickheads. I mean, I guess that happens in all walks of life now and again, but it's just dickheads with no experience of what you're putting them in charge of. And this is another stupid British thing that we do. We put people in charge of departments in our government who have no idea what they're doing in that department. We get people in charge of education who have never worked as a teacher, never worked in a school. We get people in charge of health who have never probably been in a hospital, except when they've had something wrong with them. They're not doctors, they're not nurses, they're not healthcare professionals. They're just somebody who said the right thing to the right person at the right party, and they said, oh, we're going to put you forward as an MP, we're going to parachute you into this safe constituency, just keep voting the way we tell you to with the party whip, and your quid's in, you can be health secretary. So I would like to see a meritocracy, but I think to do that we need to have a de-lordification. And the first thing we need to do to de-lordify this country is just admit we've got a problem. It's like with alcoholics or gambling addicts or people who are addicted to porn. You've got to admit you've got a problem. Otherwise, we can't do anything for you. It's like the joke about how many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb? None. The light bulb has got to want to change. Effectively, unless we point out the fact that this country is being driven into the ground and is going to be broken up very soon. The balkanisation of the UK is on its way. It's very well formed. You saw the front cover of the national newspaper, the Scottish national newspaper yesterday, and it was like, bye-bye EU, we'll be back. No worries. But yeah, we need to keep pointing out that the aristocracy, the filthy rich, these people who are under the average IQ. So average IQ is 100, right? So that's average. Half of the nation is below average in terms of intelligence, because that's just the way averages work. That's the way, because 50%. 50% are above, 50% are below, and then you have the average in the middle. So, nearly everyone who is in government at the moment is under that level. It's under that level. There's a few smart ones who I think are controlling more than they let on, but generally speaking, Boris Johnson is really, honestly, as thick as he looks. And people go, oh no, he's very clever because he does this and does that. No, he's very good at lying. That's his talent. That's his only talent. But actually looking at something and being able to work out logically the best way of doing things, he hasn't got a clue. He has people telling him. So I wouldn't say Dominic Cummings is as much of a dickhead, but Dominic Cummings is fed what to do, then feeds it to the Prime Minister, or obviously on the phone now because he's left, when he flounced out with his box. I'm leaving. I'm done here. I'm definitely not going to be controlling government from behind the scenes anymore because, the phone hasn't been invented yet. But yeah, he gets his directives direct from Putin, who is a clever man. Very, very evil and very, very clever. Politicians are basically people who have opinions, who expect the rest of us to live by the consequences of their views. Yeah, that's very true, John. Chris Grayling, failing upwards since birth. Yeah, Chris Grayling, just unbelievable amounts of failure after failure after failure. The man who failed to win a rigged election. Wow. Germans do the same thing. Ursula von der Leyen is a medical doctor. Population have the politicians it deserves. Yeah, but you see, the problem is you can mete out individual punishments for people doing bad things individually. They go out and rob something or punch someone in the face. There's no collective punishment for a country doesn't really work in the same way because you end up punishing loads of people who have done nothing wrong. So if you react to a terrorist atrocity by bombing a country and lots of innocent people who didn't do the bombing, it's a little bit unfair. Again, going back to my analogy I said the other week, it's a bit like seeing a crime being committed, an old lady getting her bag snatched across the road and then punching the person next to you. You're like, look at that crime! Boom! And you're like, how has that helped? You've just punched an innocent person because that bad thing happened. Why don't you stop the bad thing from happening? Or why don't you? Anyway, Rabid Dog, RIP UK, looking sad there from Ibra1. Yeah, the UK's out. The UK is circling the drain, as the old technical terminology was. Thomas Page, we send the EU £350 million a week. Let's fund Chris Grayling's mistakes instead. Indeed. Dominic Raab is a proper idiot. Yes, the man who didn't realise the importance of Dover. The guy in charge of Brexit for a while didn't understand the importance of Dover. You've just got to admire that stupidity. I think he goes into B&Q and honestly thinks that all the tools there are just made. They're just made there. They're just ready. They just pop into existence. Maybe we've got some like Star Trek style replicators and we just say Earl Grey, hot. And it makes us Earl Grey. And that's the only processing that has to go on. The only manufacture. But yeah, I can't think of anything, like I said earlier, I can't think of anything I could sell in West Africa. So what we got in West Africa? We've got Guinea, which is dead poor. We've got Guinea-Bissau, which is dead poor. We've got Sierra Leone, which is dead poor. We've got Liberia. I mean, Liberia just 10 years ago, they were still living off $1 a day. It was that bad in Liberia. You've got Ghana, which is good. It's doing a bit better than it was. Cote d'Ivoire, which is still separated by not tribalism, but religion, I guess. You've got Nigeria, which could be doing really well. It's the lion of Africa. It's got a population of nearly 200 million, but it's crippled by, first of all, divisive religious bullshit, where you've got the north is very Muslim, the south is very Christian, but also corruption. But like it sounds really like sniffy of us now to go, oh, these countries, they're so corrupt, and they manage and they get by. I mean, I don't think corruption's the biggest problem, because if it was, places like Britain and America wouldn't be so goddamn corrupt, but they are. And you only have to look at how many people dickhead Trump has managed to pardon in his power as president. And you look around the world and you see that time and time again, even in so-called developed nations, corruption is just rife. And it's like there was a cartoon back in the banking crisis, the credit crunch of 2008, and it was a guy holding up a bank, and then the bank manager was walking out with bags of money, whistling a tune. thinking to himself, amateur. And it was like that. It was like, yeah, these people, they robbed all this money and they got away with it because it's big money. And I think people have a bit of a shutdown. I was thinking about this. And that's why you want a pamphlet that says that this Tory MP stole, let's say, £521. Let's work it out. Let's work it out amongst the pensioners and how much they paid in tax in their lifetime and how much has been wasted on PPE that didn't work and a track and trace system that didn't work. Let's find, and Brexit. Brexit has cost £2 billion already. Obviously, it's going to impact the economy for the next 40, 50 years. So let's work it out per person and then put our thing up. Because if it's a small amount that people can imagine, that's good. It's much better, right? Charities find this. If you watched an advert for a charity back in the 1990s, it would have had like a village. So the people in this village need toilets, or they need sanitation, or they need power, and they found that actually the best way to get money isn't by doing that, isn't by saying 2 million people don't have toilets in the developing world or access to clean water, I should say. What they're best doing, instead of giving a big, huge number like that, you want to have a small group. And then they found that actually you just want an individual. So you get a child and say, this is, the name of the girl. She lives in a village and this is her life. Because we can relate to that. We can't relate to 2 million people. We can't even think about it. And it goes back to what Stalin said, or allegedly said, one death is a tragedy, a million is a statistic. So it's all well and good me going off on one about the 1.2 trillion pounds of assets that have left the UK. But that's just an unimaginable number. That is unimaginable. That is just a crazy, crazy number. That's giving 1,200,000 people £1 million each. That's like giving everyone in Liverpool £1 million each 3 times over. Yeah. Okay, everyone in Liverpool, £3 million each. But the point is, it's such a ridiculously big number, it's hard to get your head around. I think we need to try and take it down to the individual level and focus on how Brexit is impacting on people. And I'd like a little bit of input now from you guys, because I'm coming up to the 50-minute mark here. So I'm going to ask... obviously, I set up rejoin.eu.uk just before Christmas. With the intention of doing a march in March, which I thought at the time was a bit optimistic. Now there's no way we're going to be able to do it in March. This government, maybe I overestimated the government's competence. Yeah, I should have overestimated their incompetence, but I would still like to do something. It's been suggested that we do something like a drive-in rally like they had in America, but then it's also people go, well, what about the environment, Graham? And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe we should make it electric cars only. But if people have ideas about demonstrations, please put them up here. I'll have a look at your messages now, in real time or once we've finished. I always try and read over what people have said. 40% of the world ain't got reliable electric. Yeah, that's true. That's something that I discovered in Nigeria, is like the power company. I think it was called like the company was called NAP or something like that, and the locals used to call it Never Any Power. That was the name of the company. But the national grid used to go down all the time, so everyone had a generator in their homes, and you'd hear it. We were sitting in a restaurant, me and the guy I was couch surfing with in Nigeria, who was actually a Ghanaian, and we were sitting there, and the lights went off in the middle of us eating, and I'm like, oh, okay, the lights have got off, and I could see out the window, the lights have got out all over town, and then about 30 seconds later, you just hear this noise of all these generators going off all around the town, all around the city, I guess, of Lagos to get the lights back on, and everyone had to have their own portable generator, which is kind of crazy. Scheme of things, I think drive-ins would do far more good than bad. Okay, yeah, all right. If we want to should we do some driving rallies? I've got the guy who provided the stage bus for the Manchester for Europe rally that I helped organise back in September 2019. He's already been on to me and he said I can use the stage bus for something in March. So if we use that, we have that at the front. Maybe we just hire a few repeater speakers, going back, and we get a bit of wasteland somewhere up north. Let's not do it in London. I was talking about this to one of my friends who drives an old camper van, and she went, well, we can't do it in London. I'm like, why? I get charged £100. And I'm like, what, £100? You get charged £100? It's like £12.50, isn't it? She's like, no, Graham, I've got she's got an old VW. It's like, I've got a 37-year-old camper van that runs on diesel. And I looked it up, and it's £100 in the ultra low emission area. Jesus. Well, that's one way of stopping you going into London. But yeah, I'd rather do it up north anyway. 2 reasons. 1, I'm from the north. 2, it's less far for me to go. And 3, because I'm not very good at maths, is, if we do it in the north, we want to show that we're not all Brexit voting morons, which is what the people want, the people in charge want people to think. They talk about this the Labour wall has been knocked down because of Brexit. It's not. It was knocked down because of Jeremy Corbyn. That was it. And we need to get that message out. It wasn't Brexit because Liverpool voted Remain. Manchester voted Remain. Leeds voted Remain. Durham City, where I am now, voted Remain. And millions of people down in the southeast, in the affluent shires, they voted to leave. It wasn't these like hard-working children of the soil, coal miners from Durham and steel workers from Sheffield who all got together and went, oh, let's all vote for Brexit. That's a narrative that the posh aristocracy, the neo-aristocracy, the people that we need to delordify the nation of, that's the narrative that they want to sell, because they want to say this is the working class's Brexit, when it's not. It's absolutely not. It's nothing to do with us. It's nothing to do with the North. A lot of people up here, they voted for it, but the big overwhelming numbers came from down south. Cozy says, we need to keep up grassroots campaigns and keep highlighting what's going wrong in the UK, yes, and eventually the benefits of the EU membership. The focus first has to be on fixing, at least improving the UK. Yeah, Cozy, but I mean, this is the thing, I've spoken about this a bit, where we've got to rejoin, we do need to rejoin, but to get to rejoin, there are loads of steps we need to take. We need to reform British society. And helpfully, Scotland's going to leave. So that's going to make things a little bit easier, because that gives us an incredibly big stick to whack people over the head with, metaphorically, of like, you voted for Brexit, now Scotland's gone, the UK no longer exists, you destroyed Great Britain. The UK flag is no longer our flag. Please dispose of it in an environmentally friendly way. Can't really come back to that. But no, if it wasn't for you remoaners, then we would have had a great deal. And I thought it was a great deal. Well, we would have had a better deal. But you said it was a brilliant deal. I got you on tape. I didn't say that thing I just said. Sturgeon has really gone up in my estimation. Her management of COVID has been respectful and responsible, certainly in comparison to you-know-who, as in Lord Voldemort, obviously. Don't say his name, it's a hex. Is Nigel Farage getting a knighthood? No, Joseph, no. I don't think he'll ever get a knighthood, because Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings absolutely effing hate him. So they'll do things like they'll give a peerage to Claire Semtex Fox, the woman who's an IRA sympathiser and also a paedophile sympathiser for some reason, and now she's a lawmaker in the United Kingdom and will be for the rest of her life. Democracy! Chumocracy! The Lordocracy. I don't think Boris Dormisich, he's intelligent but lazy. Yeah, he is very lazy. So many of his peers have said, who are on the, he's not, I guess he has intelligence in that he had a good education. Obviously he went to Eton and went to Oxford. But yeah, he is lazy and he lacks empathy. His emotional intelligence is less than zero. And like many of his ilk, many of his class, he struggles to put himself in anyone else's shoes. He's the kind of person who can say out loud, fuck business, and get away with it. And no one takes him to task. None of the news. Imagine if Jeremy Corbyn had said that. I mean, imagine if Jeremy Corbyn had done half the stuff that Boris Johnson has done. The press would put him in a big wicker man and burn him alive. But no, because it's Boris Johnson. He's posh. He's good. He's the Prime Minister for the good times. And it's like, we're not having a good time at the moment. Can we have someone responsible in charge? No. I'm busy partying and going to bunga parties with KGB agents in Italy without my security detail. The man who, when the Salisbury poisoning happened, he decided that he would, when the British victim of that murder died, he was on holiday somewhere. He was off somewhere else, and then he resigned. He actually resigned that day without making any kind of statement about maybe we should retaliate against Russia in a bit of a stronger way than simply withdrawing some diplomats. Ooh, we're taking the diplomats away. Yeah, but Graham, they were spies and they were spying on us and we got rid of them. Yeah, great. Got rid of a few spies. We haven't got rid of the troll farms. We haven't got rid of the interference in our democracy. We haven't got rid of the British name 19498 on Twitter, the whole army of several million of them who go on Twitter every time Brexit is in the news and give pro-EU people shit, which they don't do when Brexit's not in the news. It's funny that. It's almost like they don't use Twitter unless they're told to. We joined the common market because the countries in it overperformed us, and we will end up with the same. We will end up with the same result. Of course, we will. Replying to Kirsty, I don't think Scotland can complete independence before the next general election. Hopefully, they will have a referendum, though. Yeah, Cozy. I mean, it's going to be a bigger separation than the EU, than the UK leaving the EU. It's going to be a huge thing. You're talking about a union that has lasted 314 years, and there's lots of Scottish people who will say, some probably who are watching this will say it's been 300 years of oppression, but at the same time we have worked together in defence, in spending, in budgets, in all of the big sort of government things for a very, very long time. And it's only been since, 90... When did devolution come in? Was it 98, 99? It's only been in the last sort of 20 odd years that Scotland has had its own power over its own health service, over education. Tuition fees are still not a thing in Scotland. So that process of separation, you could argue, has started. But to actually pull it all apart, I think you're right, Cozy. It will take a few years, and there's no rush. We need a pro-EU coalition, Labour, Lib Dem, SNP, Green, PC, ahead of 2024 that commits to bringing in proportional representation. That's from Edward. Edward, yes, I absolutely agree. And if we can do something as activists at the moment, if we have joined the Labour Party, which I still am a member of the Labour Party, although I keep saber rattling about I'm really not happy about this. But I watched Phil Morehouse's video where he said, I don't think he made it for me specifically, but I had actually put screw these guys. I joined so that they would support me, and they're not supporting me in the quest to rejoin the EU. But the idea is that we can actually change. We've got 3 NEC conferences between now and the next election, and in those, the members, if we get together, enough of us, we can change the constitution of Labour, because there's an important part of Labour's constitution that says that they have to field a candidate in every constituency. And people go, well, they could field a candidate and not do any publicity for them. No, because people are lifelong Labour voters, and they will vote for Labour if Labour is on the sheet, and that will split the vote between them and a Lib Dem or Plaid Cymru or SNP, or actually not the SNP. I don't think Labour are ever going to get back into Scotland, but maybe a Green candidate. Don't take their votes away from them. Just stand down. And I think that in response, in safe Labour seats, or formerly safe Labour seats up here in the north, stand down, Lib Dems, stand down the Greens, and make sure that you fight one candidate, a coalition candidate, for every single constituency. So it's just one person on the centre left, and then one Nazi for the Conservative Party. And there'll probably be UKIP as well. Has UKIP defunct now? Is it over? We've got our independence. Not from the lords and ladies who run the place, but, not from the aristocracy. Yeah, unfortunately. We need electoral reform. We do indeed. I absolutely 100% agree. Well, listen, it's been great. It's been super. I love you all. However, I'm gonna have to skedaddle. It's 2 minutes past 2. I've got things to do. But thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for supporting this channel. If you're not already a Patreon supporter, it's just a few pounds a month, and you get to help pay for a battery for my laptop and microphones. And this was kindly donated by one of our viewers, David, as my Christmas present, which I'm really, really grateful for. But it allows me to do this kind of thing with less technical problems, maybe some backup systems in case things go tits up and I have to improvise at the last minute to actually get the show out. But yeah, that would be absolutely fantastic if you could go over there. It's patreon.com/thatgingerscouser. If you want to help out with the Rejoin movement, rejoineu.uk is the website you want to go to. If you leave me a message at the bottom of the page, I'll get back to you. I'm going to update that later today to get rid of the Christmas puddings and turn it into a 2021 thing. Yeah, and if anyone's got any ideas for how we do protests going forward, I'd love to hear some ideas. One of the ideas that I had last year, and I think we should still do this, is we get cardboard flowers. We get how many people have died, so it'll probably be 90,000 by then. 90,000 cardboard flowers, and we lay them on the street coming out of Downing Street onto Whitehall, and take up the whole street with the flowers. And then we won't be able to get a drone, but what we can do is get on one of those little glide boards with a camera on a stick, so you get the effect of a drone, but it's not actually a drone, and you go along, and so people can see just how many people this government's incompetence has killed. So if anyone wants to get involved in that, or knows some printers, or what would I say, cardboard cutters that might be up for helping us out with that, give us a discount rate. I'm sure it would be a couple of grand, wouldn't it, to do all that? And then volunteers. We'll meet in London one day in March with masks on, and we do it. We just take over the street, we put all the flowers down so people can see just how many people have died of COVID. We thought about doing it with crosses, but obviously that excludes people who are not Christian, so let's not do that. But flowers are kind of a bit more universal for death. Okay, so thumbs up, likes, everyone's saying adios, and play Ed Sheeran song. I'm not playing Ed Sheeran song. I'll play Lost in the Supermarket by The Clash. That's good. Right, so milkshake, tankers, hosed on I'm sorry, that really tickled me. Just the idea. A milkshake tanker, and you just hose down Farage every time he leaves home. Yeah, please stay in touch. I will see you again on Sunday at 10 o'clock for weekly Hughes at 10. So stay tuned for that, and it will just hopefully just appear on your feed, and you won't even have to do anything. Here he is, it's Graham, he's live, and he's talking, and you can leave your messages, and I will read them. As best I can. Obviously, if I spent the whole time reading the messages, I'd never get to say anything else or respond to them. But yeah, great seeing you all virtually, and I will hopefully see many of you again on Sunday at 10 o'clock for the next edition of Hughes at 10. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, hello, good evening, welcome.